when I think about that, when I think about stories that matter, and what encapsulates that, there's sort of two things for me that stories do and books do, which is, and the good ones do both, but the major things for me is that they provide an escape, which is much needed all the time, but especially in today's climate. And the other thing they can do when they're working is make you feel as though all the fears and insecurities and the negative thoughts you have are completely fine because someone else has had them too. So for this, when I think about these questions, I try not to overthink them because I'll have a million answers. So what I might do is I'll probably, between recording this and it playing, I've probably emailed you guys 50 times to update my answer. But today, my answer is Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. And for me, I read that as a teenager, and for me, that showed me, there were all these sort of thoughts in my head that were sort of conceptual, but there's no way I could have put them into words, and I had certainly had no idea other people might feel the same. And reading that book, it was this super simple, beautiful little story, and it just made me feel, I don't want to paint this picture of me being a lonely teenager, but I guess I was, and it made me feel a little less lonely, and it made me feel like, I don't know, that maybe my insecurities were more universal than I thought. So that's a weird kind of very personal answer, but hopefully that's satisfying for someone. And now this is one of the most difficult questions I've ever been asked. Which book would I take on a space exploration mission? Thank you. I'm a writer, by the way. That's what I do for a living, and I can't say the word. So first, this isn't my answer, but my first answer was Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke, which is my all-time favorite sci-fi book. But then I started to realize, well, that's sort of not the point of the question. So then I made a quick adjustment. My final answer is It by Stephen King, as well as being one of my favorite all-time books. It's nostalgic and scary and wonderful. It's also something like 1,500 pages long. So, I could travel light years and still have something, it would take me a long time to read, fill in a lot of time. So that's my It by Stephen King, my final answer. I don't know why I said it like that. It's not a game show, but that's it. Yeah, so I have a specific memory and sort of an impression. So I remember it was the Mornington Library, but it was the old Mornington Library. So I really can't remember the way. When I remember, it's through the lens of childhood, and I think I mix it up with the old Melbourne Museum because I kind of had weird memories of a stuffed boa constrictor being there, which I know definitely wasn't there. But I have this really specific memory of going there when I was really little with my mum, and she was kind of walking a few paces ahead of me, and I still really remember the smell and the lighting and the coziness, and I just remember having this feeling of I wanted to be trapped there. I wanted to be trapped there overnight, and I still feel like that with libraries. In a zombie apocalypse, I think that would be one of the best places to go because you'd just be endlessly entertained. And actually, it's funny. I was saying this, guys, to you, not in line with this question, but I have a book coming out in the later half of this year, and it's set in the 80s on the Mornington Peninsula, and there is a pivotal scene that takes place in. It's not officially the Mornington Library, but it kind of is. And so I've been weirdly thinking about that a lot lately, just thinking, just remembering what libraries used to be and what they are now. And then the other quick memory I have is actually my school library. I went to Mornington Secondary College, and it's gone now. It used to be junior campus and senior campus, and now it's just all one. But when I went there was a whole separate campus, and the library there was just this. I was bullied a little bit in high school, and it was just this wonderful. It was like a refuge because it was a safe place that the bullies couldn't get to, and I don't know. It was just I have really, really fond memories of that smell and that coziness and that idea that you could just get stuck there forever and be okay. There's a Haruki Murakami book called Kafka on the Shore, and it all fascinates perspectives, but one of them is about this kid, and he has to, for whatever reason, spend some time in a cabin all by himself. And there's just a bookshelf full of books. And that's the feeling I get, where you've got nothing to do and you just can sit there and read and bring books home. And yeah, that got very gushy at the end, but they're my memories. So basically every major part of my life, I can connect to a book or whatever book I was reading at the time. They're very close in my mind. But I'm going to give the answer Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, which is an incredible thriller. But the reason I connect it to a certain part of my life is because I just read it and I was reading it again when I was writing The Nowhere Child, my first book. At that stage, it was called Decay Theory. Actually, at that stage, it may not even had a name yet. It was really, really early. And I just remember being really excited, and I would, fantasize about, imagine what it would be like to get this book published, but also terrified. And it was this time where it was just me in that story. And I would just spend, all my spare hours working on it and reading Dark Places. And I think that, yeah, for some reason, whenever I've got my Gillian Flynn section on my bookshelf, and every time I walk past it, I sort of think about that time, and I'm sort of thankful for where I am, but thankful that I had that time as well, So I think, yeah, that's it. Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, which is also a phenomenal book for anyone who likes thrillers. So again, when I was asked what book puts a smile on my face and why, about a half dozen came to mind. Kurt Vonnegut, a lot of Kurt Vonnegut books were right up there. I nearly went with that. But then when I really thought about it, there's a book called Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk. It was written a long time ago. Chuck Palahniuk was an incredible writer. He wrote Fight Club, the movie that, the book that got made into Fight Club, and Invisible Monsters, and all these great books. But Survivor is just, like most of his books, just very, very dark, but hysterically funny. Some sort of at the same time. And the setup for this book is that it's all being recorded on a black box on an airplane. So the protagonist at the beginning of the film hijacks an airplane, lets everyone out. He lands, lets everyone out, even the pilot. And it's just him and the pilot, and he lets the pilot jump out and parachute. And he's flying to Australia, and he's going to crash in the desert, and he's got all this time to tell his story to the black box. And that's the setup. And he tells this magical, wonderful, crazy, messed up story. But it's just full of funny moments. For example, when he lets the pilot parachute out, and this isn't a spoiler, this happens very early in the book. He lets the pilot parachute out, and while the door of the 747 is still open, he pees outside. And I think those little moments, it's like, why? I'm getting to the head of the writer. Why would he pee? I just find that sort of stuff so dumb and funny. And the book is filled with just really great, dark, weird humor. Any of Chuck Palahniuk books, they're all incredible, all really, really good, especially his early stuff, like Fight Club. But Survivor is my favorite of his, and it's also, I think, kind of the funniest.